So in today's session I'm going to make macarons. Starts with the base of the Italian meringue. Really simple recipe. They're all actually really simple, but with any chef knows that when something is simple and the stages are simple, they've got to be precise and exact, otherwise they can go wrong. So I've first of all got 90 grams of granulated sugar. I'm going to start at stage 2. 90 grams of sugar, 40 grams of water. I've stirred that lightly. I'm going to put that on the stove and boil that to 120 degrees. I've then got my egg white in a nice clean bowl ready for my Italian meringue. Just have this ready to go. And then separately, I've labelled as stage 1. I've then got 100 grams of ground almonds and 100 grams of icing sugar. This is where I've actually ground the two together and I've sifted it through twice, just to make sure it's really nice and fine. And then what I've got in here, I've got 40 grams of egg white, and then I've put a little bit of salt caramel flavouring in there, and I've also got a little bit of food colouring just to give them a little bit of colour and make them quite lively. So all I'm doing now, before I get on with this stage, I'm going to make my Italian meringue, then I can get on to bringing these together and then everything together. So my sugar is now at temperature, 120 degrees. Just going to let it stand for a second while I whisk up my egg white. It won't take long because it's only equivalent to 1 egg. Now I'm slowly pouring my syrup. So now I'm going to continue to whisk until it's cool. I thought I'd just stop and talk to you, but I want to continue to whisk this now until it's cool, so that as the sugar sets, it sets smooth and silky. Okay. I find that this is the best way to do Italian meringue because it stops the sugar from the syrup from hitting the whisk in the machine and flicking everywhere. It actually all goes into the egg white. I find this a lot better way to make Italian meringue and to control. So that's now cool, that's ready to go. So here I've got my almonds and my sugar, my egg white all ready to go, ready to mix. What I'm going to do here, just mix those in. And I always add this, even though the recipe will tell you to do this first, I always add it second. The reason being, is that this mixture will go quite stiff. There's quite a small amount of egg compared with the amount of ground almond and the icing sugar, and so the rest it can go quite stiff, and as it sits there it seems to go more stiff. So what I find better is just to get this mixed and then go straight in with adding the meringue. So I've got my piping bag ready, got my trays ready. What you can do, a bit like if you're making a long shower or a biscuit, you can draw on the greaseproof little circles spaced out on the greaseproof, turn it over. Now you could use a seal pat. So I'm just going to quickly add just a little bit of the meringue just to loosen up this mix, because you can see that it's really stiff. Now you could use a seal pat or you could use those moulds, but I don't really like them. For macarons, what I found is, especially those mats, the special ones with the lip, for me they don't work. I find that a metal tray works better and it conducts the heat underneath the macaron better. So what I find is that if you use a silicone mat, sometimes the macaron underneath hasn't formed a skin and it can tear away. So I find that using a traditional metal tray, a nice real heavy base steel one like this, actually does the job a lot better. So I've loosened up that mix a little bit, and now I'm going to add the rest of the Italian meringue. And you can obviously double up, triple up, quadruple up the recipe if you wanted. It makes huge amounts of macarons, and all I'm doing is making a small amount just to show you. what I'm going to be doing today. So I've put a bit of salt caramel flavouring into this. You can put whatever flavouring you want into it. The most important thing where you get the real flavour is not always from the shell, it's actually from the ganache. So today, to go with my macarons, I've made a salt caramel ganache to go through. So I've just used a bit of red and yellow food colouring in there, very, very slight, just to give it that kind of caramelly flavour colour. And with the salt caramel essence in there, it will help boost that flavour of the salt caramel. So once I've made these today and I've put the ganache in them, I'm actually going to keep them in the freezer. And that would be the best place you ever store them. They'll always keep really well. If you store them out on the side or in the fridge, they'll go soft within a day. So I always find I store them in the freezer and I'm getting them out, thawed for half an hour, and then they're ready to go. So I've got a couple of trays here just in case I need them. I'm not making lots, like I say, just a small amount. Just push the mix a bit further down the bag. So we need these to be a good even size. I'm doing this freehand, like I say. You can make draw little circles. I used to draw little circles. I'm quite consistent in my piping now. Remember, over your index, in between your thumb and your index finger, twist it over. So it's a bit like a tourniquet around your finger and then twist. So all the pressure is coming down into the piping bag. And what I'm going to do, pipe on and twist off. Pipe on. Twist off. Pipe on, so you hold it in one place and then twist off. So once you've got your macarons piped out, just need to tap them on the table a little bit. Just to flatten them out. Now I need to leave them. Okay, so I need to leave them perhaps half an hour, and what happens is they form a skin. What happens is if I cook these now, what would happen is they'd rise from the top and they crack open. We wouldn't have that nice smooth shell. And what we're actually looking for is that skin to form where you can touch the top of the macaron and it's not tacky, it doesn't come away from you. And then what will happen is that when you actually put it in the oven, it will raise from underneath, produce like a little skirt underneath. Okay, so it rise from underneath a bit, so you get that usual look of a macaron. So about half an hour should do it. In this kitchen it should dry out enough and it'll be ready to go. So I've left my macarons to form a skin so I can touch these now. They're not tacky at all. Now I'm going to put them in the oven for 15 minutes, 135 degrees. Halfway through, after 8 minutes, just going to open the door, let some steam out and then shut it again. So my macarons are done, they've been baked, 15 minutes, 135 degrees, halfway through. I've opened the door, and what I'm going to do now, I just want them to cool as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to move the tray, we'll move the macarons off of the tray. And what that will do, these big steel trays, they hold so much heat, it will allow them to cool a lot quicker if they're just on the surface. So as soon as they're ready, I can pipe on the ganache. So I've got my macarons cooled, they're ready to go. Like I say, they're nice and crisp and flat on the bottom. I'm going to roll them up so they're easier to count, to pair up. But by having that tray on the bottom, that nice heavy tray, it helps to just give them a nice flat edge. Otherwise, what you find with silicone, it just they don't really come away from the paper or from the silk pad, and they're kind of gooey on the bottom. So my ganache, my salt caramel ganache is also done. And all I'm going to do is pipe along and then sandwich them together, nice and easy. And what I'll do is, for any that I don't want to consume, use for service straight away, put them in the freezer and they'll keep really well in the freezer until needed. So just manipulate the ganache a little bit, set quite well in the fridge, just to make sure it's nice and pipeable. And then what I'm going to do, a nice blob in the middle of each. And it smells amazing in the kitchen with the salt caramel flavour. Now all I need to do, sandwich those together. If I just show you them up nice and close, that's what we're looking at.